Hi there.
Judith, can you try sharing your screen, please?
Okay, hold on 1 second. hmm. Let's see, I'm trying to figure something out. Okay. Share screen. I don't know, I'll share that whiteboard. Okay, is that coming over? It's a blank document, but let me know.
Blank document.
Yes, it's showing. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so screen share is,
What's our, it's Bill Lane. Or my side.
Bill Lane, 1919, capital B, capital L. When we start, I'd like to introduce Scott before we talk to everyone on mine and
Okay.
on here too.
what's your last name?
I think,
All right, go ahead and get started.
okay. And if everyone can speak directly into the mics.
Yes.
So important, because when I listen to the recording to do double take the notes, I can't hear people. So you don't need to turn and be like, "Hi." You need to actually talk into the mic.
So we can start the meeting now?
Okay, my agenda is not coming up. Howard, do you want to introduce Scott now?
Well,
Why don't we go ahead and do that?
Before the meeting, I just wanted to introduce everyone that hasn't met yet. Scott Weber, who's on our Public Works crew.
You can
If
see.
you can go to the podium and say hello, Scott. And I thought I'd just bring someone in that's who was convenient today that we were just meeting this morning, that everyone just see Scott again. Scott, you want to say a couple words and
Good morning, everyone. Happy to help out and try to keep the trails safe and clear for everybody.
Well, thank you.
Good to meet everybody and see people as well.
No, good to have you here. Thank you for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
This year in particular has not been an
It-
easy one.
Yeah, we've had definitely a few trees come down and we're still working on them, but we're getting there. Yeah, thank you.
I'd just like to say something. When you first came to work here, I thought you were in high school. You looked so.
Far out of high school.
you were so young. You
I
were-
know, I've got a
And
little
look
gray
at
hair,
what
so-
the job is.
yeah, yeah.
look like you're
So,
still out of high school.
20 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you know, we all look different after 20 years.
Okay. Well,
Thanks a lot for stopping by, Scott. I just want everyone to just look at some of the faces that do the work for the town.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
have a great day.
All right. See you all
Bye.
around. All right. Okay, we have approval of the minutes. Any corrections to the minutes that anyone wants to discuss? Or
The-
excuse me, actually, before that, any oral communication for items that are not on the agenda? Okay, now we can move on to approval of the minutes.
I would like to make a comment.
Oh, we have someone online.
Yes,
Morning.
I'm sorry. I'm attending this meeting by phone. My name is Caroline Vertongen. And
Go ahead,
before you
Caroline.
approve the minutes, I do have a clarification, and I hope Mr. Young can clarify that. I wanted to thank this committee, first of all, for a super excellent work that they do, and hopefully, I'm a new member of the PPTS, and I hope we can follow your example. I appreciate Jacqueline to approach PPTS. I was not a member at the time, but as you see in your notes, I believe it's page 7. It said that it was reported that you were talking about the beacons at Alpine Hills Tennis Club crosswalk and the Priory crosswalk. However, at the last PPDS meeting, I believe that Public Director Young mentioned that it was not going to be the crosswalk at the Priory, but it was Corte Madera. So I hope we can have some clarification before we approve the minutes. Thank you.
So that is just for people to know, that is on page 7 of the agenda, which is the notes. And it is C, Beacons at Alpine Hill Tennis Club crosswalk and Priory crosswalk. And I think what Caroline is saying is that she heard Howard say Corte Madera crosswalk instead of Priory crosswalk.
Caroline, can you clarify? Are you commenting on something that you heard at our last Trails and Paths Committee meeting, or on something at the BPTNS meeting?
Something I heard at the PPDS meeting.
Okay, the minutes reflect the discussion that we had here at the Trails Committee meeting. So we did discuss the crosswalks we discussed were the Alpine Hills crosswalk and the Priory crosswalk. I don't believe we discussed the Corte Madera crosswalk in our meeting. So can you clarify what you're asking? Because I don't think we can amend the minutes based on what happened at a different meeting.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm hoping, we have this lack of communication among the committees, and so we're hoping that's why we attend all meetings, just to hope that, we get some clarification. So you can approve them, but then hopefully sometime during the meeting, I hope that I don't have to wait until the next PPTS meeting to hear from the Public Director Young, whether this is Corte Madera or this is the Priory, or both.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it in oral communication.
Yeah,
right now.
I think that's fine. So, so Howard, I don't know if you can shed some light here. I believe we have projects that we're looking to. We have the Alpine Hills, and there's also work for Priory, and is there also work for Corte Madera too?
No, there are 2 locations where the rapid flashing beacons are proposed. The first one is at the crosswalk in front of the Alpine Hills Swim and Tennis Club at Alpine and Golden Oaks. The second location is on Patola Road, near in front of the Priory, near where Brookside comes out, where the existing crosswalk is right now in front of the Priory. And I think we used to use in front of the Priory is really, we should just say Patola at Brookside / Corte Madera Road. So those are the 2 locations. I hope I clarified that.
So maybe the confusion here is Corte Madera Road rather than Corte Madera School. Does that help, Caroline?
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, thanks, Howard. Okay, any other, we can't see anyone who is not on video. We cannot,
I can see it now.
okay, there do appear to be five.
I'm sorry.
There are 5 folks on, so we'll give a few seconds for anyone else who wants to do oral communications.
So it's just Caroline, and then the rest is all of us.
If we can change our view, we should be able to change our view so that we see everyone's on. If we can go to a gallery view, but we can move forward in the meantime. Okay, now on to approval of the minutes. Any changes that anyone?
There are some typos and minor things, so rather than take up time here with Liz, because I was away, I'm afraid I only just read the minutes. Can we do this later and just approve them, just with the few typos, nothing major? That sound good? To approve them now with the changes that, but as I say, they're just some typos and a misspelling of a name that I can talk with Liz after the meeting. Go ahead and approve them with some minor typos.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second? I'll second. Alex seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait,
Uh,
I need to
Barb-
record those, so.
Barb and Susan are abstaining.
Who's the second one?
Susan.
Oh, Susan.
Okay, so we'll just take the vote again real quick for clarity. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous.
And just one more question. I thought Fred had said we don't want to abbreviate names. Are we still doing that or not? Like SRTS?
So the, as long as we have it's spelled out initially and very clearly up front, I think abbreviation is probably makes sense.
I've been trying to spell it out the first time it's mentioned, and then put the abbreviation in brackets.
So maybe something we can do is just at the top of our minutes, highlight what the core,
Glossary or something?
yeah, something like that. But yeah, for the sake of trying to understand them in the future, not having the abbreviation. Very helpful. Okay, let's move on to old business then. Howard, can you take us through any updates on the trail conditions work in the budget? I think this should, I think it should say in, I think it should say for March 2023. It says February 23 in the agenda, which would be my error.
Okay, let me get to that. So in March, we spent about 10 hours on the trails, and it's mainly for fallen trees on the list here. Just want to note that we don't have a map here because we talked about not doing a map.
Yep.
We thought we'd try it this time. So if anyone missed anything, just let me know. We can always put the map back in. One thing we find out is on the map, the number of fallen trees, you could put an X on it. And you can see 2 trees, but on the chart here, next time we'll update it as instead of trees, we'll have 2 trees. So on Coal Mine, there was a fallen tree cleared. Larry Lane, there were 2 fallen trees. And on the Shady, there's 2 fallen trees. But then now there's even, on the Shady Trail, there's even more fallen trees now. There's 4 or 5. So I know Scott was out there, started to clear them yesterday, 2 or 3 of them. And there's a couple more that he was running out to finish this morning. Okay. So, that is the trail work summary. And I have a list of other things to go through also, if I can do that really
Yeah,
quickly.
that's great.
The schools did have spring break last week. So we sent our crews out to kind of look around things at school, fill out some ruts so that it's a good time to do them. So when they start using them for PE classes, we took a look at. Trees, we started on trees on Shady Trail and Coal Mine. We know that there's still trees on, fallen trees on Eagle and Sweet Springs that we'll get to. Weed removal, we typically start in May. We're looking at some contractors now to assist us with that. It's a lot of mowing. There are typically requests to mow the trails at the ranch area on the Toyon and Sweet Springs to avoid the wildflowers or to allow them to come up first. However, so what we'll do is we're gonna put those as last. And I think I've got an email from Fred about that and at the ranch too. So, but once again, with the caveat that, you know, there is no guarantee that we don't, you know, we're weed whacking the trail tread and a couple feet on either side of the trail. If the wildflowers didn't bloom, it's very hard to tell if it's a wildflower or it's a grass. But we're gonna have to, at some point, we'll have to clear those things. So,
Wildflowers on Toyon are looking very, very good right now. Check 'em
Yeah.
out.
yeah, with lots of rains, what it'd be interesting in how it affects things this year. Last year, we got a lot of lupin, not a lot of poppy, but hopefully this year we get a lot more poppy. And you'll also start seeing us start mowing the open spaces too, for the conservation committee's requests. You know, not only for fire break, but for weeds too. We're trying to get weeds at a certain point to reduce the weeds in the years. If, you know, once again, if you do want to mark things that we don't want to mow, let me know. You can email me and mark out a spot. If you have a favorite spot along the trail that has specific poppies that are coming up, just mark it and let us know. Typically with either spray paint or some kind of flags. That'll do. And that's all. I mean, we're still doing a lot of trail storm related cleanup. You know, the Sausal Trail still needs, and I was going to ask the committee a couple of things. We're going to be planning some work on the Sausal Trail when it gets dry here in the upcoming weeks. I know we talked about having the committee, some members of the committee assist us in outreach and talking with some of the neighbors there on Nathorst concerning their drainage onto the trail. And we welcome that. In fact, we would like to ask for help doing that. And going forward, I mean, there is a lot of work in weed control, weed whacking, just post and water bar cleanup. And I just want to extend an invite. If anyone wants to help us do that, you're welcome to. Just email me and we can provide you with the equipment also.
Can we extend that invitation like on the town forum? 'Cause there have been people in the past who have, I've actually been approached at least by 2 people who've asked in the last month about helping out on trail.
Yes, I think you can work with me and Carrie to get that word out. And, you know, we have equipment here. You know, sometimes we loan out our weed wrenches. I think there's a waiver that they have to sign, and I have to look into, you know, if they're using our power equipment or their power equipment and no gas blowers and so on. But I would welcome the committee coordinating. Maybe we have a work day. Once it's dry enough, we can coordinate a work day, a community work day, and it allows, you know, some of the kids some community service credits for college too. So,
Liz, can we just note it in action to follow up? I can take the action to follow up with Howard on. Gary?
Yeah, so thank you. I just want to bring up some history on this. And in the past, some 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we tried to do this on Shady Trail, we got a lot of pushback from residents because they didn't want people wandering off the trail onto their private property with equipment. And I think the concern there was if someone got hurt using equipment on their property, then the calculus changes for liability. And so I really am not an expert on that. I don't know what the real bottom line is with liability. But as we proceed, if we're going to do work days on trails that are on private property, we just have to be very sensitive that we don't wander off trail and off easement. and start mowing their lawn, although in some cases they might be pretty. Yeah, Howard, I volunteered to drive the tractor.
couple other things on that too. I do want to give an update on Fawn, the trail parking there, but also, I mean, just looking at, you know, we could, concerning the liability issue, maybe we can look at, you know, do you want to volunteer to do work on the trail that passes in front of your house or behind your house? So some kind of adopt a trail. That would help out a lot, I think. So this other topic is basically parking on trails. I know there was issues on Fawn. And I personally went out there to visit a couple of the contractors to get the word out. And bringing that topic up, added to its high priority. And I did let the owners and the contractors know. So that is my report.
Thank you.
That is my report. If there's any questions, please let me know.
So thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about a trail. This is Cervantes Trail. It's at 151 Cervantes. There's been an open trench there for, I would say, the past month. And the trail is passable, but I'm wondering if there are any regulations about how long there can be an open trench. And I'm concerned if anybody rides a horse, if that wooden plank that they have across the trail is safe enough for a horse. I mean, you would stop and kind of assess that before you. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Right, but I
I'm sorry.
mean,
It's a Westridge Trail.
right, but don't we have town regulations about how long there can be an open trench?
I would expect that's a encroachment permit, Howard.
Yes, what is the cross street?
It's 151. You know the property. It's right by the Canyon Trail.
Oh, okay.
Where
okay, yeah.
where he's building the ADU. yeah.
That is Westwood Trail, but if you can send a PV Connect and I can ask, so if
I
there's
will.
an
I
assumption,
just-
yeah, there's an assumption that they have an encroachment permit. They may not. So if that happens, please call the building department. And then part of it will be the engineering and public works department too. They're gonna say, well, they're gonna go send a building inspector out there and go, whose is the trench? And then either public works will go out or building will go out to enforce. They should have if they are familiar with the trail there, they should have the proper plate there. For horses.
I just didn't know if there was like a time limit on how long you can have an open trench.
The time limit should reflect what's on the permit.
Okay,
And typically what happens is if it's a PG&E trench or a Cal Water trench, a lot of the trenches in town could be when you want to upgrade your service, PG&E gives you an option of the homeowner does it themselves or PG&E does it. Or what happens a lot of times is the homeowner will dig the trench and then PG&E puts in the pipe. And a lot of that coordination with PG&E takes time. It could take weeks to months.
okay.
But I think that once we receive a complaint that it's been there too long, then we'll check via the building permit and encroachment permit process.
Thank you.
Gary, did you?
Howard, you might recall when they put the driveway in through the construction driveway, we called them out on that because it went across the trail. So I think they have. Did they get a encroachment permit for that?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we'll double check if that they must. I'm assuming they must have an encroachment permit because they have a building permit too. But so we'll check on it.
And one more thing, I'd like to volunteer for a poop patrol. Somebody rides a horse along Dwight Crowder, and there's a lot of stuff collecting there. So I'd like to come by Public Works, and can I just pick up a small shovel and just put it to the side there? Because I don't mind seeing horse poop like on trails. This is on a paved path, and I'm thinking that it might be nice to get it out of the way.
Yes, and thank you for that.
I don't think you need permission to do that.
And a rake works better.
What?
A rake works better.
Well, whatever, I mean, you can tell that I'm a neophyte when it comes to removing whatever I need, I'd like to pick it up and
We're gonna get the Susan poop rake.
exactly.
You know, when you kick it off with your shoes, it'll hose off your shoes really well when you get home.
The horse people giving the non-horse people a hard time. This is great. Okay, let's move on to anything else, Howard? Any other questions for Howard?
No, I think that's it. Just overall, our fields are open right. I think they look great. Justin Bixby maintains our fields and he's getting good comments from the leagues. But just to let everyone know, fields are opened and kids are visiting the fields and playgrounds. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
One
Okay.
more- One more quick comment here on Howard stuff. So thank you to Howard for going out to Fawn. How many times now? It's been so many. They were parking on the trail again yesterday. And so it's just not working. And I know I'm gonna get a letter off to Laura. I haven't done that yet. We'll do that. So again, any kind of suggestions that we might have, put in that letter, please send them along to me. Because I think what happens is, the people on site are told, and then somebody new shows up who wasn't there that day, and they park because no one sees where they park, and then you end up with the next guy. Oh, there's a place to park. I'll park right behind that person, and there's 4 cars. So yeah, any ideas, please send them to me and Laura. I don't know if you want to go back out there, Howard. And the project on the corner of Golden Hills and Fawn is also parking on the trail right there, and is really dug up the tread. You can see. And they were parking there.
Well, Howard suggested last time to resurrect the letter that I used to put on cars, remember, saying you were on a public trail, please remove per code so-and-so. So maybe I should dig that out and start putting it on the cars. I haven't been doing it, but there were cars parked yesterday on Fawn.
Remember too, that Howard said last time, you've got to put it in PV Connect so that you will get a notation in the project file. They won't get a final approval until the trail's put back. I know that doesn't help in the meantime, but that's an important dot to connect also.
So perhaps we could agendize the topic either next meeting or the following one, just on enforcement generally on trails. It seems like there's a theme here. There's parking. There are certainly some complaints on trail usage in the ranch, bikes and dogs in particular, and just how do we want to approach the overall topic of enforcement.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, right now when we get to follow-ups, there's that section because we talked about it and there was some to-dos on that. So we'll be discussing it in the follow-up section, but this is a good practice of our process. So now it seems like we need to escalate or jump up this issue to an agenda on its own.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also see a real opportunity here to connect with the public and hear what their take is on this these days. We haven't done that in a long time. So maybe we have a special meeting or some type of forum where we can really get the public involved and hear, their thoughts on this. I know that everyone here has probably had conversations with residents at one time or another about enforcement. And so I think I'd like to really hear what all the residents are feeling about that.
Yeah, agreed. Go ahead, Howard.
So that's for the work. As for the budget, the trails budget is currently $57,200, of which we only use $1,000, and mainly that was for the posts and signs at the end of Stossel. So, however, upcoming, our weed removal is about $25,000, and for the storm damage that we've seen so far, it's about $22,000 we're probably going to spend. So that's almost speaks for the bulk of the budget.
And just for clarity, this is the budget under you allocated for trails rather than the committee's
Yes,
budget.
yes, this is just for maintenance of work. Yeah. So, but right now, our, once again, our prediction is going to be about 25,000 in mowing, because that's about average for mowing all the trails, and then about 22,000 in the storm damage that we've seen so far.
And at that, can you give the span of that's to July of this year or?
That's to June 30th of this year. And then we will have a budget. And on budget is we are looking. You'll get more information on how we're going to approach the budget. Potential of rolling over a budget. Also take a look at the CPI items also that Joe sent. And I did this morning send out kind of our list of items to Fred too that he can share at the next. But once again, that also list also includes Sausal, which if anyone's willing to help and contact folks along there, that would help us out.
Moving on to item 4B, Trails Database Subcommittee update. Liz?
Okay, that does not have a page number, but it is in the agenda. If everybody could turn to that, please. So I was supposed to do a more thorough description of the project, which I have done here. And I'm just going to briefly review it. So the purpose of the Trails Archive, previously known as database, was to create, or is to create a tool. It's going to house data regarding the trail system and will be used by our committee. Then I've listed basically the fields, if you will, that would be in such an archive. And then some of the requirements of the tool. Obviously, it has to be searchable. We have to be able to print and read the queries, easily updatable. We need to be able to link to files in other databases that are on the cloud and accessible to the public. Easy to use software, and we would like it to be GIS enabled, which means that it could have coordinates and cloud-based. Some of the things that the database would help answer questions to as the committee is doing its work is, well, what happened on this trail between 2022 and 2023? So you would be able to pull up Sausal Trail and whatever had been recorded in there. Of course, you know, good data in is good data out. You'd be able to see decisions made, signage added or removed or updated, pictures, you know, any major issues that had been reported by the secretary of the committee. How did we acquire the trail? What is the usage designation of the trail? What does the town council resolution say about the trail? What signage is located? What documents have already been located regarding the trail? Why is the trail designated in this way? And what was decided regarding the trail, for example, in any particular year? So currently, none of those questions are able to be answered when you just do a search on portolavalley.net minutes. You can't answer those questions. The user audience would be our committee. And we do think that if we made a GIS enabled tool that was in the same software family as what the Public Works Department and Planning Commission already use, they could find it useful as well. And at a later date, the public might have access to it. We don't know. We could talk about that. And I do have an asterisk there just to let you know that the current town historical database, which is a good example of another town approved database or archive, is not easily accessible to the public. Just so everybody understands that. It's actually rests on one person's database computer. Nancy Lund. Okay, and then maintenance for such an archive, we would have to maintain it ongoing. That's why it's important that we develop it in a software system that is easily updatable and is, you know, something that a lot of people in the tech world might know how to voluntarily help, and or the town already uses such a database. A person would be assigned from the committee to, you know, I suggest for 1 year, that responsibility could rotate among members, but that person would be kind of overseeing the maintenance and management of the tool. And it would be a login protected archive. I also, before we discuss this, was responsible for getting back to Easy to Be Green, the group that has that already works, for example, with many jurisdictions in the area, including Woodside Fire Department. And Howard introduced me, or introduced the whole committee, I should say, to Alexis from that. You had invited her to one of our meetings last year, or Craig Hughes had.
Yeah, I just want to correct, I did not, maybe Craig Hughes. did.
Okay, she said it was you, but okay. Anyway, she came to the meeting, and I've been working with their company to understand how they already do these kinds of archives for other jurisdictions. She's showing me, oh gosh, you know, water water maintenance, departments, all types of trail, systems, public trail systems that already use this kind of archive system. So our project, just to give you some context, what I've outlined in this 2-pager is like a gnat compared to the projects that they normally do. So it'd be really easy. The hard part is getting the data in there, which I would be willing to take on as a project and just do it over time. And I think it's really, really important project for this committee, or we're going to lose our ability to keep track of all of one of our greatest assets for this town. And with that, I'll open it to comment.
I'm very supportive of this. I think you even just saw this week in discussions around safe routes to school where people were asking questions of, well, I thought we'd made a decision about this trail and its ability for to travel on it with bikes. What changed between I think 2000, mid 2000s, I think it was referenced. So having this, I think, would be absolutely going forward.
Yeah, you've done a nice job. man.
Yeah, I'm also super supportive of this. I'm wondering if at some point we could really leverage this as opposed to the minutes. And our minutes could go to just action items like the council does and not this long, 20-page document that isn't searchable really unless you ask the town to search it. So I'm very supportive of that. A little concerned about, piling all the work on you to enter all this data. So maybe we can pass the baton, once in a while at a meeting, or it's your month to enter the data into the.
Well, one of
something to
the,
share that load.
let me interrupt that. One of the great things that you can do with the ArcGIS system is easily create an entry capability on app on your phone or iPad. And you could have, high school students, for example, we could have a summer project where they go out on the trail and take a picture of the signage. It would be geo-tagged right there, and they would just enter it. And, there are some really easy ways to get the data in there. And like a lot of it's going to be linking to other documents that are in public databases. So I don't think it'll be that much work. But I do think that I would like to try to create a little volunteer project that people can volunteer for that aren't on the committee to provide data and get it in there. I've done those kind of similar projects with high school students or they're college students before. And, I think that might be a way to jumpstart getting the data in.
Yeah, I think figuring out a long-term plan for how to sustain it is probably a good thing. And if anyone, Liz is the only person on the subcommittee at this moment. So if anybody wants to join, me to connect with
Yeah,
that.
you know what, if this is approved, the next step is going to be figuring out what company to use to help us do it. And I could use, a side captain here to help me kick the tires and understand opportunities. The one company here that's super excited to do this is, Good to Be Green, and they would use the system that Howard, the Public Works already uses. The Portola Valley already owns a license to this database, ArcGIS, out of Esri. And I'm not even going to pretend to be, I'm like a total beginner on that software. So I just don't want to miss anything. If we should be doing it in Salesforce, then, I need somebody to tell me, oh no, you should be doing it in Salesforce. So if there's anybody on this committee that would like to help, that'd be great. Or if there's somebody that knows somebody in town who would be jazzed to work with me on that, let's do that. Like we got Dave to do the mapping. Plenty database nerds.
I'm sure they exist in this town.
Yeah, I might put a posting on the forum if that's okay with everybody. Greg Hughes had suggested I do that because he's a database nerd and he said that was the best way to access database nerds.
Sounds great.
Okay, so sounds like everybody's, now Susan, I want to call you out on this. I want you to be comfortable with this. you feel like I've properly represented, to answer your question in that these types of questions that this tool could answer cannot currently be found in searching on Portola Valley.net. Okay.
I'm not
Um,
sure I agree with the level of detail that you're going into, and I'm wondering what the company is going to be charging for this. I'm not going to be doing that.
I don't know yet.
Well, I mean, I think they're probably going to be charging us.
I think two things. If we end up going with this company, they've talked about doing it complimentary. Because why would they do that? Two reasons, and this is totally I haven't really discussed it with them. So this is my observation. One, again, this is like a gnat compared to what they normally do. And two, I think they want a foot in the door to Portola Valley to help Public Works, develop additional type databases since we already use this tool, like they are doing with Woodside Fire Protection District.
If I can put Ellie on the spot, I mean, we're kind of the old guard of the Trails Committee. And I'm just wondering if you on the level, I mean, do you think people need this level of detail? I'm just kind of,
Well, it's a new world here, and
I suppose we need to.
I guess I think it's good in many respects. The people who have a need to find out when the trail was started, how long ago, but is it bringing more local residents onto our trails? Do we meet a lot of people when we go on our trails? Are we as a committee going on our trails? Because I think Liz had questions saying, well, how do you know when there's something there? I said, well, when you're on the trail and you see something, then you report it. That's the only way. There's not a system to it.
No, I don't think this has to do with that. I think that's more with the public map, frankly. But I think to answer your level of detail, that the fields are listed, types of data. Okay, so if you don't think, if there's a field here that you think is too detailed, I'd like to know what that is.
Well, first of all, I would love a printed copy of that.
Okay, just print your agenda.
Yeah, it's page 14 of the agenda.
Oh, no, I know it's on the agenda. I just didn't print it up. I don't have it.
Okay.
I guess I could just print it up at the library. Why don't I study it and get back to you then? And
Perfect.
let you know what I think.
That'd be great.
And, generally speaking, it can be pretty easy to set up a database these days, depending on which tools you use. This is not a very sophisticated database. It's going to be pretty simple to set up. So I don't imagine that if there is a charge, it would be really substantial. The hard work will be adding the data into the database, which the company would not do. We would do that. So there wouldn't be any cost associated with that other than our time, of course. So I don't see this as being a really expensive venture. I believe it should be flexible so that over time we can change it, because we may find if something works better this way or that way or whatnot. And it should be noted that once the information gets in there, it's largely static, right? I mean, we won't really be changing the date something was done to a trail. Just a collection of information that it's all in one place. So as we get down the road and we find more and more requests for this or that for this trail or this or that for that trail, we have a nice starting place of all of the history of that trail to go from. Because I think right now we scramble. Anytime, like Salsa, we're trying to figure out the easement. We kind of scrambled because we had nothing to start. Absolutely. All that history was just lost. So I don't know if this will solve that problem entirely, but I think it's a great try to solve that problem. And I expect that over, let's say, the next 10 years, we would use this information quite a bit as we start making decisions related to trail usage or maintenance or whatnot.
I think its use would be good in the respect when new people come into the valley and say, well, why aren't bikes allowed on the Westridge trails? Why? Because it is very convoluted, and unless you have been here a while and figured the ins and outs of it. So that would be a good thing, because we go through the system all the time, having to explain why they can't go this way or that way. So I support it in that respect.
Okay, if I could make one comment,
Go ahead, Judith.
I think this is a great idea, as Ellie said, to record for the future participants. One thing to check on, some references are here to documents relating to parcel maps, et cetera. The only concern I have is duplicating documentation that's related to someone's property interest. In other words, check with Cara to make sure that whatever we're putting in here, let her run down these and just make sure that we're not getting into an area that is potentially gonna create uncertainty on people's property maps, et cetera. So I think there's a legal aspect to this that I would just want Cara to be aware of and be able to comment on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would like to just,
Can I just respond to that, or you responded to that?
well, I think it goes with what Judith said a little bit. With the trails and the coordinates. I know that a lot of our trails might have migrated over the years. They might have gone from, where they used to be, maybe they're infringing on somebody's private property. And I'm just a little worried that we might get into a little bit of trouble here. I don't know if Howard wants to comment on this or not. In other words, a survey, like a drawn map versus a professionally surveyed map. Isn't that what we're going for here?
No, I just
No?
want to be clear here. First of all, I will figure out how to talk to Kara. Second of all, Judith, I just want to be clear for everybody that this only contemplates linking to publicly available documents. Okay, so they're already out there in the public sphere. And then third, if we went with the ArcGIS system, imagine when you went to get into this archive, I'm going to call it a database, when you went to get into this database, the first screen would be our public map. And you would say, I have a question on Saucil. And you would click on Saucil for the committee. That's how that's how the coordinates are displayed. It's not contemplated that some kind of surveyed map would, legal surveyed map would be how we would get into this. And again, if we went into Saucil and you had a question on easements, the only thing you'd see there are links that we had previously researched, taking a lot of time, I know, since I've been doing a lot of them, that you just see the link to the San Mateo County parcel map that's already, again, like I would have had to go into the San Mateo County database and get all that. It's just a link to it. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, I'll chime in also. As this develops, I think if it's a tool for the committee to help out the committee and it's unofficial and it's not something that the staff is going to make engineering judgments on or planning or building judgments on, I think we should differentiate that. If that is the intent, I think there are going to be some issues. But if the intent is just for a tool for the committee to pass down information to the next committee 5 years from now, 10 years from now, then I think might be a different story. It's something that there's a usefulness there, and it's just a collection of information that has to be, if it was relied on, has to be vetted by some kind of town staff if needed.
It's how Gary described it. It's an easier way to contain all the data that we already have.
Yeah, I was going to add that it's a way to prevent talking in circles when everyone has a vague memory of what we found out 5 years ago. It's just like, here's what we found out 5 years ago. And then you don't have to wonder what the answer was. And for the committee, not necessarily for everybody, but again, that's a bigger conversation.
So you're saying that it's not going to include incidences of where we've had problems with
No.
homeowners on the trails getting something done. So it's not going to go into that kind of stuff, right?
Well, I don't know yet. For example, Gary brought up a great example, which was, let's say that there were 5 different times that we brought up a ditch problem on some trail. that wouldn't typically be recorded in this archive. However, we would say, wow, actually, we need to fix the trail.
Yeah, like every 2 years, this trail washes out. We should go into a more substantial fix for it instead of repairing it every 2 years.
So then you might find, let's say that happened in 2024 and now it's 2028. You might go back in there and be like, oh, we did a major trail redo on Larry Lane 3 years ago. Okay, I wonder why it's not working. Or, okay, we should let that homeowner know. We've already fixed that, or something like that. Does that answer your question, Ellen? It's not going to be like 151 Cervantes was issued a, encroachment problem, slap on the wrist because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think if we focus the information on the trails rather than people,
Issues
yeah,
rather than issues. I agree.
Yeah.
Because weather and rain do undo them again, so.
To Susan's point, the trails are where they are. We don't know that they lie inside of these in many cases. None of this is going to flush that out because we're not going to survey the trails as part of this effort. We tend to find out more about these, like the trail section there on Cervantes and Cresta Vista, where the house was sold and the homeowner did the survey and found that the trail wasn't inside of the easement, and we had to do something about it. And by the way, Howard turned out pretty good, right?
Very good.
Yeah, so I think those would probably be dealt with more on a one-on-one basis. We know they're out there, but we're not going to go hunting for them. Not even the public map addresses. It's not surveyed. So I think we shouldn't probably have too many worries about that. But they will come up from time to time. If we were to survey a trail, for example, in order to measure it against a multi-use standard, which we don't have yet, but if we were to, that might uncover some of this kind of stuff. And I expect some of that might happen in the future. So I think we'll nibble at these as we get them, but we're not going to go out.
I think it would be a good thing because I remember a trail on Golden Hills that the homeowner arbitrarily moved it. It was more of his property right along the road and his oleanders constantly grow over it. And then there's some people that deny that there's a town trail over the property. So
The same thing on Golden Oak.
that's the one.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
okay. Well, thank you, Liz. Excited to see progress here. And again, if anybody wants to join her on the subcommittee, I don't think she'll turn you away. Let's see, for old business, let me just skip forward to the Hawthorne's update because it'll be short and then we can go through the follow-ups. So there was a meeting that I attended on Hawthorne's, I want to say it was just before we had our last meeting on or about March 13th or 14th, I want to say. It was pretty high level. I think the important thing to share with this group is I communicated our desires for one, as Mid-Penn develops Hawthorne's, being able to have Alpine Trail be widened so that we can help improve the safety of that trail as it goes down towards Alpine Hills. Also advocated for more multi-use trails within that section so that we can meet the needs of the community, people wanting to ride bikes in addition to riding horses and hiking and running. Those are the main things that I communicated to that group. It still is, I think, in the very early stages, as you've seen from communications from Mid-Penn over the last several weeks. But I wanted to make sure that the committee knew that we were at least sharing perspective on what we would like to see them do with respect to trails. Any questions?
One question, what would they be doing further down Alpine Trail, heading towards the club? Because it's very narrow there, there's a creek. I know we're more concerned about that part opposite Roberts, it's very high in the hill, but as you go further down, you've got huge trees in the way and very narrow, so that's all part of their purview, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's also, I think there are open questions on what their parking plan is and what that part of the area, I believe, is a potential area for parking, if I understand the plans correctly. I think there's also an option to route. So if you're connecting people to Alpine Hills, right, you don't actually have to continue all the way down Alpine Road, you could go across back towards Los Trancos, sort of paralleling Firethorn. And if you could put a crosswalk in there, that actually might be a better plan overall for getting kids there. So I think there are multiple options. They're still just scratching the surface of their plans for developing it.
When do you think this will all come to pass? 5 years?
I saw
Years?
mention of 4.5 years.
Of us maybe in a
something.
wheelchair.
Then you keep walking on the trail. See, yeah, I'm not worried about that. No, I don't think it's going to be soon. But I don't have any insight as to what the actual timeline is. Which is why I think we should continue to move forward on some of our plans for safe routes to schools anyway, for the agenda item and new business. But
Can you remind, I know it's looked up on a map, but where the Hawthorne's property, like as we talk about that section of the Alpine Trail, so it sounds like you're saying it is all the way from Portola Road to Los Trancos, that there's an area that they could redo trail, that sort of something?
yeah, the Hawthorne's property, let me make sure that I describe this correctly. It's not, I'm not connected to Zoom. So it starts at the intersection of the Sweet Springs, Sweet Springs Trail and Alpine Trail, and then runs all the way down towards, I think it's the intersection. It's not quite with it sort of comes to a point right around near Firethorn. I think it's just prior to Firethorn. So there is private property between Firethorn and Los Trancos, but the Hawthorne's does connect to Los Trancos Road. I'm not sure exactly what the parcel map looks like in terms of there's the one developed house that's right at the end of Firethorn, or kind of the driveways at the end of Firethorn. But the Hawthorne's property does connect to Los Trancos. But I think to Ellie's question, if there is this creek there right at the end of the Hawthorne's property where it is on Alpine and then Firethorn, and if you could get some sort of bridge or something there and put people on Firethorn ends right
Those
right
Los
into,
Trancos.
right into the back of Alpine Hill. So that could be a good solution. But I think to your question, it is much, it's down the road.
But they're starting the process. That's the main thing.
Howard.
I just wanted to remind the committee that the town did submit a trails relocation request a number of years ago, for those that remember. And I think that came through the council too. It got submitted to MROSD to potentially move the Alpine Trail that's right on the edge of the hillside there across from Roberts. Yes, inward, and potentially remove the fence or have some kind of new split rail fence. So you could find, there's some history about that. I just want to remind everyone that that request was put in, and then maybe as a representative of the Trails Committee, if we do to go to further meetings to remind them of that request that was submitted. It was a written request. It's pretty thorough.
Okay. Yeah, if we can connect outside this meeting, I'd like to know that. Yeah, no,
Was
could be
there
in
a
the database.
reply? What was the outcome?
The outcome was,
I mean, someone said no. That's fine.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess so.
I think the outcome was we don't have an answer for you yet until we get into further planning process of the Hawthorne's property.
Exactly.
So, but that's been like that for, I think, 6-7 years. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's run through the action items on the agenda. And I want to try to move us along in time because we're tracking a little behind. I will have to leave at about 10:05. But on the action items, let's just quickly note whether or not we took care of them, or then we can just carry them over to the next meeting, rather than having too long a discussion, because there's some important topics that we need to get to in the new business section. So just running through the list here. Liz, there was an action here on you looking at parcel map to determine if there's an easement for a property that came to mind. This is, I think.
Yeah, I did, and it does have an easement.
Cool.
So what is the next step on that? So we can table it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I guess maybe you can follow up with Howard on the next step on that one. Let's see. We took care of the action on the charts, so thank you, Howard. Reminder for anyone as you're going around on your assigned trails, taking pictures of anything that is quote unquote imminent danger or big problems, either both using PV Connect, but I think Howard would also appreciate having some pictures on some of the major work projects. Let's see, we took care of the Trails and Paths capital budget request from Joe.
Could we please get a copy?
Yeah, we can send that out to the committee. You can add that as an action. Let's see, you presented the Trails database, Liz. I think we've got all of the follow-ups done on the notifications. Alex and Jacqueline, anything to report on the webpage?
Not yet. We should. Yeah.
There have been other priorities.
Yes.
but
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Well,
coming.
it's totally fine. This is a fully volunteer effort. We're just trying to keep track. At this point. Let's see. Howard talked about the budget. Alex, you got the Safe Routes to School request on Joe's.
I think, but if we send out the website, we can double check that. Maybe.
Okay. Cool. Jacqueline and Gary, you guys have it. It's in your the ball's in your court on strategy for Hillbrook. I'm assuming no.
Yeah, we've talked, Gary and I have talked, and we have a very loose strategy, but basically we feel next steps before we can come to this group, we need to have some legal
Got it.
discussions. Otherwise it's just our opinion, right? So Gary's talking with a friend, and we're going to reconnect, but we are working on it.
Great. Let's see, Howard, did you forward an easement to the land surveyor on this one?
Yeah, on this one, we're gonna have to obtain the easement because the easement, like 20–30% of the pages, the edge of the page was missing. So we're gonna have to obtain the full easement document.
Okay. Great.
What happens if that's the way the easement exists at the county?
I don't have an answer for that. When the pages, they're not 30% legible, that's an issue. It's basically a booklet that looks like it's 30% of the pages of all the pages were essentially cut off. So somehow we'll have to go down to someone will have to go down to the county to verify that. So maybe I'll ask someone from the Trails Committee, someone on staff is gonna have to. Thank you.
I will volunteer to do that because I'd like to learn how to do it.
Thank you. Go down to the county recorder's office and ask for that specific official records, and we can go through.
Thanks.
So the map subcommittee is on the new business to bring a draft resolution. Howard, you sent today, I think, the booklet that guides how signs should look. Is that right? Do I have an email on that?
Yes, it's actually a physical book, so I have it right here for anyone to look at. And then it accompanies the list I just emailed you. It's a list from 1998 spreadsheet that kind of points the location of each trail post and what they should say, because there was some, I believe there was some this was prior to my time, but there was some donations to get your name
Yes.
or a quote on those signs too. So
Sometimes they'll have that.
So if you could distribute that list, that'd be great. And the booklet is here for anyone towards the end of the meeting if you want to look at it, or it'll be in. Thank you.
And do you have a strategy for the new dogs on leash?
Yeah, so for any new signs, we're just going to use the same dogs on leash that MRSD uses. And that's the one that we've been using. And if you can take a look at Liz's map, the dogs on leash symbol, it's the same exact one.
Great.
And that helps us standardize things.
Yep. Okay. Let's see, Gary, you had an action item with ASCC. Reach out to the planning department to see if we can be forwarded project plans again. Great. Okay. Let's see, we have on here that we're keeping on the 210 Cervantes question about the bottle brush. Does anyone know, has that been removed yet?
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Because it looks beautiful. I go by there every day. I really like it.
We can take that one off then.
The hummingbirds will miss it.
You know, I'm looking at this map, this schematic that Liz has done, and I think she means Golden Oak, not Golden Hills, right?
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
On page,
I think
page
17,
3 of your Trails database.
page 18 in the PDF of the,
You have Golden Hills.
There's a different trail called Golden.
You mean Golden Oak, right?
No, I think there's a different trail called Golden.
But I mean, there's no Golden Oak Trail on
can,
here.
can we,
Yeah, well, it's tabled
can we
till we get to that.
follow
Okay.
offline so we can get through the actions, but, okay, let's see. Liz, you got paid for the, okay, but we followed up. You have the email, right? Okay. Okay, subcommittee will do drafts. You got the booklet. Sorry, I got sidetracked here. Howard Young reported that he's still in talks with Carousel with town attorney regarding prescriptive easements. We should have an update at the next meeting.
Next meeting. yes.
Okay. All right. Safe Routes to School Committee, still talking about milestones. Have you guys had a chance to talk about a work back date from when school starts
Yeah,
next year?
so we've tried to connect. I don't know, Howard, did you see that email where I just outlined a possible timeline based on my understanding from past meetings about the beacons?
So I can review that more in depth. I want to review that more in depth, but once again, you know, we're still targeting June for design, and we're targeting this summer for construction. And, you know, we're going to try our best to get it in by when school starts. But once again, I don't know what the materials delivery. But the biggest thing is going to be basically some more public process and materials delivery. It's not that long of a project. It's a week, you know, it's a 1 or 2 week project. So once again, as it stands, we're going to try to get it in before school starts.
Okay. Let's just have it on the agenda again next month to check in, make sure that we're still on track. And that's all of the action items from last meeting, and we can move on to new business. I'll take this transition. Gary will finish out the meeting for me. I have to, unfortunately, have to leave now. And so we can go on to the town council resolution, new trails map, and new safe routes to school. Gary, you can sit here. The mic.
Okay, who wants to take this item 5A?
I do. Okay, in your packet, there is a document titled Portola Valley Town Council Resolution to approve updated trails and paths documentation. The first 2 pages give background meant for town council members and the public to read. And then that's the first page. Then there is this grid that Susan was referring to. The grid only highlights, the table, I should call it, only highlights trails where there were issues between the previous maps and other maps. Then let me just go through the history or the outline of this. So it goes that, because I thought it was important to be upfront with town council members and the public on which trails we, have changed on the visual of the public map. Then there is the actual resolution. I just copied the wording. I didn't contact Cara or anything. just copied the wording from the previous resolution, so hopefully you had a chance to read that. The reason why I worked hard to get this in the packet is so that people could review it ahead. And then in the old resolution, the previous most recent resolution, there was another table of all the trails. So on that table, you see Golden Hills and Golden Oak. And then there is the actual public map. Okay, this is the final. And then on the back of that, if you printed it two sides, or I'm sorry, is a separate map, is our Safe Routes to School map. The subcommittee is coming to the full committee today to ask that you went through this, hopefully ahead with a fine tooth comb, and you will discuss your questions and get Judith on board to be able to present this to the town council, with the result being that they approve the resolution and they approve the new maps, plural, and those can be distributed to the public.
Thanks, Liz. Anybody have any thoughts or questions for Liz?
right. Sorry, Gary. There is an open issue that if people don't have, I'm sure people may have random questions, but there is still a large issue that, for example, if everybody just sat here and said, perfect, go for it. There is one trail that still needs your comments on this, which is Valley Oak. Okay, and Valley Oak is the last one listed on the grid. It's got a yellow highlight. We need to decide today how we're going to handle Valley Oak on the resolution and on the public map. So I don't know, Gary, if you want to go over that first, or you want to just get everybody's issues and then we take them one by one.
And Liz, can I just add real quick, didn't we agree via email, there's two that we need to discuss, also based off of the PD forum discussion for that section, just for the safe routes to school?
I think you bring that up. That's not how the resolution's written. So you bring that up as a change to the resolution, which is fine.
Well, we do actually have it written that way in the resolution, though. It states how that area is still requiring, I mean, it doesn't state that it's undecided, but it states that it's still requiring.
That's what I meant. Yeah, the undecided.
And just, I want to point out in here, does everyone see, it's not, the safe routes to school map didn't come in here correctly.
Yeah, the
It
color.
doesn't
the
show
color
any
windows.
of the trails.
I know. You can pull it up on your computer in the link. I'm sorry that didn't come right.
Like it pulled up this color. and it's black.
I thought it was my printer.
So just to clarify, what Liz is asking us is if we vetted this new resolution and we understand the remaining set of issues, and if we are prepared to resolve those issues today, and if we do, are we then prepared to hand this over to Judith for her examination and comment? I have a couple questions first, before we get to that. Were you able to talk to Mid-Penn about including their trails on the map? Did they give a thumbs up for that?
Yes, so I talked to Chris Baresi at Mid-Penn. He approves this map that you're looking at now.
Great.
I talked to WASC, West Ridge's organization. I've talked to them 3 times and I have not received any comments back. I did receive acknowledgement that they have seen it and they were going to discuss it April 10th. I followed up. I still haven't heard. However, before she was elected as a town council member, Mary Hufty was the trail committee head for WASC. She had approved this. And what is on the map is directly taken from WASC's own map. So I feel pretty comfortable that it would be approved if I ever heard back from them, but I don't have it in email that WASC approves it. I do have it from Mid-Penn in email.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think we need to get that from Mary or whoever is the new trail boss. Mary's not the trail boss anymore?
No.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so we do need them to sign up on the map. I don't know that there's any issues there. I think it'd probably be pretty simple, straightforward. We do have a standing agreement with WASC from when Mary was trail boss that we can include their trails on the map. That may be good enough, but I think out of courtesy, since this is a a new map, it's different, we should get them to just. And then we don't, Howard, it's, Salzville's up to you. So the new map and resolution are showing it multi-use. I've convinced myself that that's the right designation for it. However, I don't get to make that decision for the town. What's the one power the Trails and Path Chair has that's been codified? Did anybody figure out what that power is? You know what I'm talking about? Is it power to approve those kinds of things?
Thank you. Just a couple of notes if I can. It would help on the resolution if we can see an old copy versus a new copy, like typically, so that I and Judith or the council, when they look at a new resolution, they're gonna go, well, how did the old one look? So typically it comes in the form of like when you do a track changes on the Microsoft Word doc. So it's apparent that which changes were made.
I don't have the Microsoft Word doc of the old resolution, but I can mock one up. But I will tell you, all of the written part of the resolution is exactly the same. The only change is the date at the end. That's why it's highlighted in yellow on page 7. However, obviously the table is different. And that's why up front, I provided the other table that highlights the differences. Okay, that's what really you need to look at big time. It goes through every trail that changed and why, how it was. So for example, if you start on page 2, if you start the Admiral Quilter, well, what's the issue? It's a shared trail, half is WASC and half was PV. The signage on the trail is reversed, actually, in terms of which part of the trail is which. Recommendation, we fixed it on the new public map, add the project to move signs and place them correctly to our signage issue list. Okay, Alpine Trail, the 2007 Town Council resolution and the 2007 map showed some portions with incorrect trail usage. Okay, what are we recommending? Well, for both the new Town Council resolution and the new public map, we show multi-use from Indian Crossing to Portola and on paved sections. Other paved sections are EP. Committee continues to research easement on south side of Alpine to potentially enhance trail for multi-use. Note, this is an important part of Safe Routes to School effort. I'll do one more. Alpine Canyon. Issue, it was not on the 2007 public map. Recommendation, well, it's currently on WASC's 2022 trail map. That's be on the 2023 public map, etc. So that's what people, especially you, Howard, and other, anybody that you need to go through that grid, because the one that's in the actual resolution, okay, the table, that represents what has changed, okay? And that's how the previous resolution was done. Does that make sense? Do people understand what I'm saying there? Why there's 2 tables? One is going to lead you to what you just asked for. I didn't think I should, I don't want to put that in an official resolution because I don't want to pull that up in 5 years and see all that. I mean, I would see it in the documentation.
So let me
So if I could make a suggestion, we do need Cara to tell us what the resolution needs to look like. I think what you did is going to be very useful because it comes from the prior, but there are best practices about how to formulate the resolution. She's got to look at this anyway. And one question for her is whether it's going to be best to approve the map as updated and as annotated, and then in supporting materials, give us that chart. Because to me, the chart, I have a question whether that should be part of the resolution, but it certainly is going to be necessary for us to understand what's changed and why. So it's really helpful information. I just don't know if it needs to be part of the resolution. And I think, Howard, that might be one complication that might be, it could be simplifying just to have a final map and then have supporting documentation and a voiceover for the town council to understand what's going on. Cara also needs to look at these changes and see if she is aware of any legal reasons why further work might need to be done on one or two of them. I don't have any reason to think that. But if we're adopting a resolution to change things, she's got to be very comfortable. There's no additional legal analysis that needs to come up. Howard, do you think that makes sense? You do this more than I do.
Yes, that makes complete sense. It's basically to make it clear to the council what the actual change is, so they can see it. And then also, Cara indicated we cannot give, the council cannot approve uses that are not legally given to the town to give. So the
Right.
biggest thing is going to make sure that the easements, the private easements specifically indicate that we can do this, then the council can do this. So I think that's going to be one of the questions that they're going to say, and I'll have to digest this. Is there a column that basically says what are the legal easements say what the uses can be?
Okay,
Does
let
that
me
make
just,
sense?
I'm not really understanding. So the table on page 2, it starts on page 2, is what's changing. The table that follows page 7, I don't know why it has all these zeros on it. When you send this into the agenda, people, it gets reformatted. That table that's titled Portola Valley Trails and Path Designation, think of that as a trail list. Okay, that's just a trail list. The other, page 2, that's the thing that shows all the changes. So if I hear you right, you want me to go through this, or I should say the subcommittee, and highlight which ones have to do with an easement? Because not all of them,
No,
No,
not all of them.
no. I'm not trying to create more work for you.
No, I'm
Uh,
asking what Howard.
Yes, I'm trying to explain my own view, and then Howard can weigh in. But what you've got is already, to me, has what we need. And the question is the legal formulation of the question for the town council. So what does the resolution look like? What supporting materials do we have? And then Howard, you might have a question on is there legal work to do on some of these easements if we're indicating their changes? So I'm just trying to bucket things a little bit here.
yeah, and my interpretation of what Howard said is if one of these changes included changing it from pedestrian only to pedestrian and bikes, we would have to research that. But most of these we forgot to put 15 years ago, someone forgot to put the trail on the map, and we just put it on there. And we made sure that it matches what the sign says on the ground. That's like 99% of it. But if there was a functional change, then we would call that out to do research.
Yeah, actually, that's correct, Alex. Is that if you're telling me 99% of these kind of physical changes, not fix-it things, it's just that in my experience, when things go to the council, it's easier to digest when they plainly see what has changed on a list and on a spreadsheet.
Well, we can also,
I
Yeah.
feel like you're taking this from the wrong list.
um,
Okay, go back.
it's a couple pages up, but I think too, we should show them the 2007 map in this map. And they can see this trail is not even drawn there. We've added it. And
Yeah,
that's most of the changes.
Yeah, I have to digest this. I'm not saying this is the wrong format. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that in my experience, the way that when things go to the public, to the council, they like to see a kind of before and after of
Yeah.
the old map, the new map, the old resolution, the new resolution.
Okay, gotcha.
That's all.
I think the only thing that's not here, and it's no additional work really, is just adding in, right, the old map as one page and then putting in the old resolution. But no more writing, nothing, just
Yeah.
happy
Got it.
moving.
Mhm.
And the most important thing is going to be if we do trail usage, that we have the legal right to do so.
And most of this is just a visual upgrade so people can navigate the trails more than anything else, minus a couple.
Well, maybe we change, so right now, the change table is in alphabetical order by trail. And I think what you're asking, what might help you is if we sectioned out the the ones that might need legal proof versus the ones that are, that got left off, that. was
So
not.
right now, the two trails that we need to verify easements are Salsol and Valley Oak. And I don't want to speak for Howard, but I'm guessing that Howard's not going to accept this in completed form until we resolve those outstanding issues. Meaning we're not going to get this in front of the council until those issues have been resolved. And is that correct, Howard? Is that a,
Well, I think we can piecemeal it if we want to get certain things across to the council. All I'm saying is to prepare for the presentation for the council, this is what I believe they're going to look for. They're going to look
Okay.
for it before and after, and if we have legal. And so instead of coming, to have that information beforehand on the trails that we want to change is useful, or else, or else we're just going to go to the council and then the town attorney is going to say, oh, do you have legal right to do this?
Yeah, no,
And then we
I
have to come
understand.
back and do the study, so.
So we can start with, I kind of disagree with you, Gary, because for example, like with Valley Oak, we could start with that. Well, we could discuss it at the next meeting, but that's one that has some meaty issues, and we could decide to take the most conservative route. And, for example, on Valley Oak, we could say, look, it's pedestrian only. We could take the most conservative route and say, we're going to make it pedestrian only so we can get this public map out, and we're going to have a strategy to continue to work on that and research it for bikes and safe routes to school. That would be one way to still move forward with a resolution without, so we could take the most conservative approaches on Saucil and Valley Oak without stopping ongoing review and strategy, because the beauty of it being digital, right, is that it can be changed. So I'm not sure that we have to wait necessarily, so.
please, Howard, go ahead.
So dovetailing on what Gary says now, however, procedurally, I mean, you can break things up into pieces, but that's probably not the most optimal way. I actually do agree with Gary that it's nice to have everything done and then go to the council. Instead, I mean, once again, I don't want to impede progress. It's, but it does make sense to have everything done, everything ironed out before you go to the council. It becomes just a many step process.
Well, and then what is, if we could ask for the update on those two, because I don't know that I'm clear on what are we still doing or waiting for?
Let me just clarify, that was not my intention. Actually, my intention was if we couldn't get it to the council in its current form, I'm actually supportive if the committee wanted to take a conservative approach and go to the least common denominator of these trails and then submit it to the council, then come back with another update once we figured all this stuff out, because it could take months before we figure some of this stuff out. So I don't want to hold up this good work for another couple months if we can't. But if you're telling us, Howard, that really it should be just one submission with everything figured out, then I respect that opinion, but I don't know that I support that opinion.
So, but there's, I'm saying there's different ways of doing things. And I think at this time, it probably, Judith, if we can ask the council liaison to do at the committee reports during the council meeting, is to maybe broach this subject and maybe get a little bit feeling on what the council wants and how to approach it. And chime in, get Cara to chime in. Can we piecemeal it? Or do we have to come back with the expectation is to come back with the whole thing done? Is that fair, Julie?
Yeah, that is. One question is this piece a condition of getting the safe routes to school locked up? Like, is this a necessary piece for that effort? I'm just thinking timing and sequencing. What do we actually need to do here? If we had a couple months, doing it all at once is clean. But if there's an urgency to it, or people want to put a bow on this and say, this is a lot of work, we're done for now. I think we could go either way, but I would like to understand timing pressures in the bigger picture that drive needing to adopt this sooner rather than later, if there are any.
I mean, if I could say, I think for the safe routes to school, at the latest, it would be really ideal to be publishing it and including in back to school documentation in the
Yeah.
August timeframe. And these few trails in question are pretty huge for the Safe Routes to School effort. I mean, Saucil has been used for the last decade. My kids and I bike it every single day for the last 4 years. And if people see that suddenly with signs, I mean, that's a huge loss. So that's a big, yeah, like we don't want to move. I would not want to move forward with a Safe Routes to School map right now, showing that as not. I would rather get the final answer, but August would be the date that we're aiming for.
And Howard, in terms of your experience with analyzing this, there's a lot going on for the town. Are these issues likely to be resolvable by then? Or are, we could always put a notation in the map that it's under further analysis or something, if that analysis is going to take a while, so people know it's not changing, but it's under analysis. Like, that's another way to go, but I defer to you all being closer to the subject matter than I am right now. Howard,
I
any
think I-
thoughts?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question, Judith. I can foresee this. There's two issues here: changing the use that the council has the power to legally change, and changing the use that the council doesn't have the power to change because of the use. I can see both requiring some outreach. So if you're going to change a use in front of someone's home that didn't have that use, like no bicycles, there was a reason why there was no bicycles for probably decades. And those homeowners probably decades ago came to a Trails Committee meeting and requested no bikes. We don't know if that happened or not, but I see there's going to have to be an outreach component to this. If it's traditionally the way the town does things, we would have to notify everyone. We have to send a notification. Okay, we're going to make this change. We typically send it to everyone within 300 feet. We're going to make this change. So there is a public consensus process that we haven't touched upon that I think that traditionally the town goes through. That may delay things, 6 to 8 months.
Well, to that point, I think it's important we make a clarification here, Howard. We're not proposing to change any trail usage as part of this effort. We're not changing a single trail's usage as part of this. All we're doing is clarifying. So, for example, the section of Alpine Trail between Indian Crossing and the intersection of Alpine and Portola, we found the easement. It's existed. Bikes have been allowed there forever. And the map didn't show it, but we just clarified. We didn't change anything. We just simply found the easement, presented it to the town. This has been there forever. So we didn't change an easement. So you might consider that changing the designation of a trail, okay, but we didn't change an easement. I don't think we need to notify the homeowners in a situation like that. The easement's there and we have the right to use it. Salsa, another trail, we're just clarifying. We're clarifying what the easements say, what the easements permit. So we're not changing a single easement as part of this process. So given that, I'm not sure that there's a need to go out and do 300-foot notification, because we're not legally changing.
We're basically just updating a hand-drawn map that I remember when I first joined the committee, I increased the resolution so you can actually read it on a computer. And I don't even, if it was from 2007, someone just made a human mistake and forgot to draw it on there. And so we're just, fixing that mistake. Essentially, it was the goal, the initial goal of the whole project. So.
If I could step in here, it sounds like we need to give Howard the time to go through the table that outlines the changes, okay? And I can also go through and highlight better ones that might be of concern. Valley Oak is a particular one because the trail was missing, wasn't even mentioned in the 2007 Town Council resolution. Although the 2007 public map shows it. And it shows it as multi-use, and the ranch doesn't want it multi-use. Well, and the signage shows it as pedestrian only. So that's a particular gnarly one. But otherwise, so it doesn't quite match what, the summary we just had. But other than that, I think the summary that Alex and Gary just gave is true. And I think that you need to go through the grid, okay, the table that outlines the changes. It sounds like I should kind of mock something up for Cara to look at. Is that right? Or you want to go to Cara verbally and get her advice?
We could talk offline on that if, and once again, I'm just going, I'll have to go through the chart here, but I'm just, I'm just providing information on the process. That's all that I potentially, there could be this process. Because
Right.
if you're asking me about timing, I want to be realistic that, from what I've seen before, what people ask for.
Right,
That's
but I don't think you can comment necessarily on the timing until you get more familiar with the quote changes, because to Gary and Alex's point, there really aren't a lot of changes. Okay, so you need to go through and see like, oh, okay, we're just gonna fix a sign, all right, okay, we're just gonna add spring down to the map because it wasn't here in 2007, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. What I would, as part of the process, I would want, and I would recommend, and I'm happy to participate in, once we get documentation together that this group is comfortable with, which I think you have most of here already. We sit down and lead Cara through what this is and what it isn't. This is, and A, she has to help us with the resolution format. B, she has to think if there's any legal analysis that needs to be done that needs to make sure it's tied up before it goes to the council. I think we have to give her the benefit of having the opportunity to do that. As part of that, she will ask, like, let me see the easements. I mean, you've already done the work, you have the paperwork. Has she already, when there's been a question on an easement or a new aspect of the easement, has she been in the loop at all to date, or will this all be new to her?
From my understanding. Okay, go ahead.
So there are some instances in general that I mentioned, but the whole entire package is going to be new to her. But she
Yeah.
is aware that this is going on and that we've had discussions, general discussions, not on specific trail easements.
Yeah, so I think we have to get her in the loop, make sure there's nothing else. Like if there is no change and she looks at this and says, oh, this is just articulating something that has existed. Okay, then there's no legal issue maybe, but we also have to talk at the town council about, okay, what are the optics of changing a map? And how do we message that effectively? Changing the designation on the map, not changing an underlying easement. I take your point, you've looked at it, and these are not changes, these are accuracies that are being introduced. But we have both, does Cara see any legal issues that need to be addressed? If not, what's the best resolution to put out there in this day and age relative to 2007? And then second, I do think it's got to be considered how to communicate for people that are within range of the changes. Is there a sensitivity there or not to consider? I don't know the answer to that, and you all might have already thought about that, but there's legally required, and then is there a reason to be cautious and let people know this is coming and why? And I don't know the answers to those. I'm just thinking about the process here and trying to get you all to think about the good work you've already done and do those two steps make sense? One is to meet with Cara, help her understand what it is and what it isn't, and who should do that out of you all. I'm happy to be there to facilitate, or not if you don't need it. And then second, I think I just need to maybe talk with Howard and see about the optics of introduction. Like,
assuming there's no change that's being made at all, is there a way we do these things historically that we should consider? But let me be clear, I'm fully supportive of updating this map. You guys have done wonderful work, and you're so close to having it done that I want to make sure we're lining it up to get across the finish line well.
Okay, thanks, Judith. Maybe it's a good time to just move on and talk about Valley Oak. What are the action items we need to do there? Valley Oak, do we know if it's entirely in the road right away yet, Howard? Can we make that statement?
So it is not, it is not entirely in the road right of way. I mean, if I recall, it was like 80% in the road right of way. There's small bits and pieces that run on the private property for some reason. And I don't know if that's because somehow historically someone just moved it over. But you know, the majority of the trail is in the right of way, but I cannot say the whole thing is.
Okay. And the portions that are in the right of way, then you ultimately have control over designation for those sections of the trail. Okay. And are you prepared to make those designations, clarify those designations, or do you need any other input from us on that?
No, I think we just go, I'm just gonna go, if it's in the right of way and I go by if I have to double check if the ranch had any requirements designating that trail themselves. I don't believe so, but we have to double check. Okay. But if it's in the right of way, then the town gets to designate it.
And what kind of time do you need to do that? I mean, you need a month, 2 months? What do you need?
You know, we have a lot. Unfortunately, we have some resource issues right now
I know.
at town hall.
And I want to be sensitive to that. And you have 2 jobs now, so I'm not gonna, I will, if you need some time to think about it, that's okay too. But I want to be realistic about how long it would take you to accomplish that so that we know what time frame we're looking at to get Safe Routes to School. Because this is a gating item.
Yeah. Probably a month and a half.
Okay, month and a half, fair enough. Let's make sure we let Fred know that we'll get it on the agenda, not at next month's meeting. And then for Salzal, we're very close. Liz is going to go down and try to get a better copy of the easement from San Mateo County. Are there any other action items to resolve that issue?
Once you get that, we'll have our land surveyor review it. That's maybe the major thing.
And Liz, how much time do you need to do that?
I can go down next week.
Awesome. Okay, so then we'll have that for next month's meeting. Maybe we can get that on the agenda and resolve that one. We're really close, right? Okay, so those are the only 2.
Can I just ask too that maybe, how much time do you need to go through this table? And highlight if there are any other
Good
problems.
question. Fair question.
Yeah, I'll have to get back because there's a substantial number of hours of work, you know, for myself here.
If we can help, Howard, let us
Oh, yeah,
know,
yeah.
because in some cases, we do know where the easements are, or we do know.
Or another thing is so I wrote this out in English. If you would prefer, this table has a lot of other columns that say not on 2007 map, not on 2007 resolution, more of a table.
Yeah, that would help out because when I was looking at the table, it would almost
You
help
prefer
me.
that, yeah, columnar type.
or basically a column that says change in use or not. Because
Okay.
then I can plainly see,
Okay,
okay, is it not, if 90% or 99% of these things don't involve a change in usage, then they're going to be almost, you know,
Okay.
it'd be a quick review
Okay.
versus the ones that do involve.
okay, so
a
let
change in
me
usage.
do that for him
Sure.
and then you can start.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it'd be like 2 columns that says change in usage, yeah, allowed per, you know, allowed per easement or not allowed per easement, and then we can tackle each one of those.
And I would just also add, I mean, you let us know, Howard, but if sitting down for a 1-hour meeting would be helpful, that we could, because obviously then it might just save time, but you're not left with confusion. Do it together.
Probably. There's a lot to digest here, and you know, I recognize the good work too. And once again, it's just how do we kind of cross the finish line and check dot all i's, cross all the t's, and package it to the council.
I'm with you.
And who packages it to the council?
Okay, so it sounds like the follow-ups are well defined at this point, so there's no public comment. I don't think we have any public here online. So we'll go ahead and move on. Thanks. It's good discussion. Thank you, Howard, for all your time on this one. A lot of work on it.
Period is now appropriate to discuss that section of Alpine.
Is it a follow-up or do we have it on the agenda?
I mean, it's as part of, it's incorporated within this
On the
topic.
safety swim. Okay, then of course we can.
I
discuss
mean,
that.
I guess I'll lead it off with the first question before we go too deep in it is, I mean, this has been a back and forth we've had in subcommittees and just over many years, I'm sure, but that section between Portola and Alpine Hills on the trail section, is that, Howard, considered a town right of way, like we were talking about with Valley Oak? Am I asking?
Are you
that question
talking the
correctly?
south side of the trail
No, I
or
never- I
the
guess
north
that's the
side?
south side, yeah,
The dirt
but not the
trail.
Roberts
The
side,
dirt
the
trail,
dirt trail.
not the Dwight
Like,
Crowder
is
trail.
that town right of way? Is that one of the trails where it's a town decision of how that trail's used?
This is the dirt trail right across from Roberts, right? I believe so. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I believe it's in the right of way and it's up to the town.
Right, and that was my, at least when I looked at the one property, I know a person who lives there, but I couldn't find any easements. So anyway, so that was my understanding, but this is one that while we've talked about it in some of our subcommittees, as we've been making the resolution, Liz, Fred and I at least have talked more about it. And then obviously the PV forum debate brought it into light again. I'm guessing everyone saw that. If not, we should review it at a future meeting. But it's just one area, at least it still leaves me uncomfortable just knowing how many families in town just have a really hard time swallowing that we're telling them their only option is to cross the street twice to get to Alpine Hills. That's a perfectly fine one option, but I still feel that we should give the option just for safe routes to school for now. Telling people that maybe 5 years from now, that's going to be a multi-use trail through Hawthorns, like that, it's just, it doesn't seem acceptable. Do I feel, or does anyone in the town feel that that's a wildly safe multi-use trail? No, but can we all also agree that it's not a particularly safe option? It's sort of like pick your pick your evil. Do you want your kid to cross the street twice, or do you want them to use that section? And the final, I didn't realize Fred was going to have to leave, but what he proposed in an email was that, you know, we've reviewed a few things. One could be we pilot allowing kids during safe routes to school to use that section to Alpine Hills, but they're given the option. It's not they could cross the street, but we pilot it, see how it goes, show it on safe routes to school map. If we find it's a highly problematic issue, then we table it, you know, 3 months after a pilot to revisit. That was one thing that was proposed. A second that was proposed is that it's shown with an arrow of, please, this is narrow and sloped, please walk your bike. I'm not telling you you have to cross the street twice, but we think you should maybe need to get off for this steep section, you know, show between here and here on the map. And anyway, but I think we're just wanting to, and we don't need to hold up the public map, that can go forward, but if we need to pause for another month or two and come up with a solution for this, but yeah, how Fred had proposed it was as a pilot, and I think we just need to make a call. And
You know, there are other users on the trail too, though, right? So we have to take into account that there are 3 different user groups in the town.
Yep.
So we all wanted our kids to ride on that, but there is a safety issue and we can't ignore everybody. So I think that they would run, I don't know, this is something the town attorney would have to look at, because it's not just unsafe, it's treacherous if a bike and like this come in contact, someone is on traffic. They will go off that trail into traffic. That's,
Right, but right
And-
now, we're telling our kids to go into traffic.
I'm just,
No, and and you
I'm
know
not
that we're talking
arguing
about
with you. I'm on the same page as you.
there's safety
So
issues
I
on the-
think we're all on the same page as you, Jack.
Well,
But
no,
I
and-
just don't want anyone to. So this is,
I-
and
what's
if we
hard
can
is we-
find a solution,
Yeah.
great, but this is a legal thing for the trails too, for the town.
Yeah,
I agree, there's a cover year, and that was I think it needs to be noted. I don't think we're saying with certainty, but I also don't think I'm not comfortable with either, if I'm being honest. I don't think we're currently proposing families a safe route, period.
No,
You know,
I
and
hear
that's
you.
what, and
So-
what's hard is this, like, 5 years from now, it will be
Yeah.
maybe an option.
Is there any information on how many kids use that trail? Like, do
And that's
we,
the other is, I know that this is, I don't think we're talking,
it's not a ton, but
a
at
huge
the same time,
amount.
every once in a while you see a kid on his bike there and there's
Right.
there's no interaction. I'm just curious, like, if there's any way to see how much of a problem it is, because in theory, it's a huge problem, but how often does it actually
and I
happen?
think that was Fred's point of
yeah.
like, let's try it out and see if this is really a problem. And I think we are
No
trying
one's
to, I
following
mean,
up,
there's
but
people in town who want it to, of course, be multi-use across the board. And I think all we're saying is these, for now, at least, as a pilot, these hours, we're not, and the hope would be that it just becomes a known thing too. So maybe that's not a great time. Like, let's communicate this to the town, and you might want to second guess riding your horse from 8 to 8:30 in the morning on that trail. Make room, but I would argue right now, even with just walkers, you might want to question that.
I
There's
just
like,
want to
hey,
raise
I wanna
one other
propose-
issue.
What, can I just
And that is,
propose?
are we as volunteer town committee members insured if something were to happen and we had okayed that? Do we have insurance covering us for liability in that
So
event?
we can't, okay.
No,
We don't
we're
have
just
the
proposing what to
authority.
recommend.
All we can do is make a recommendation to the town. Yeah, there's been a lot of history on this trail. Those who've been on the committee a long time, we've talked about this a lot. It's not generally good principle to say, well, we have two bad or two less than perfect options. So let's take the one that's most perfect, even though it's less than perfect. We would be really talking about changing the designation of a trail if we put bikes on that trail. So I don't think we can do it halfway. I don't think we can have a pilot program. I think before we do any of that, we have to have a determination by Public Works, whether it passes the multi-use standard or not. And we have to have an okay from the town that they're willing to change the designation of that trail. That's bigger than I think what we're talking about right here, because that's something I would want a lot of public comment on, a lot of public comment. Do we want to try to tackle this as part of Safe Routes to School? If you think we have time, let's go ahead and put it on the agenda. This very specific topic, invite public opinion on it, and then start deliberating on what we might want to do. We know that the official solution is to cross Alpine twice to get to Alpine. Right? That's the official solution. So I think we have to stand by that right now. We can't waffle away from that unless we're actually change the official solution. So yes, Howard, is this, are we going in the right direction here?
Yes, yes. Also, I actually have to leave. I have a pretty big meeting at 11 o'clock. So I'm sorry, I have to step away. Before I leave though, I just wanted to mention to Judith, maybe it might be worth mentioning at the council, the liaison report, this whole
Yeah.
topic, where it lies in the priority list and what resources that we want to weigh with the rest of the council.
Yeah. I agree, Howard. I would have plan at some point having a fulsome agendized discussion of this. What I would think we want to explore is having maybe some combined meeting on this with the bicycle, pedestrian, et cetera committee, to understand more fully the options, et cetera. This has been a long-standing issue, and we keep looking at Hawthorne saying, once that's figured out, we will have better options. And maybe that's where it ends up, but it certainly deserves more time. And I think the council does need to know that this is coming up again. I mean, you look at PV Forum, it's, you know, the meetings I've attended so far rightly raised this as something to have a close analysis with. But I do want to underscore that we want your ideas and we want you to kind of think about this from multiple perspectives. But to the point of liability, you know, it's the council that will make the decision at the end of the day. So hopefully that takes a little pressure off and you can kind of do your outreach and talk about the things that you're seeing that are good, bad, and alternatives. So I think we need, you should agendize it. We might want to have the council recommend a combined meeting, maybe with another set of folks as well, to look at this in more detail. But it certainly needs public discussion
Are you saying
in a big way.
agendize
Thank you.
it for, agendize it for the Trails and Paths Committee or agendize it for the town council?
Well, you could always do it for you. It might be premature because if I go to the town council and report in a week or two, here's an issue that's coming up that how do we want to handle it? The mayor may decide that he'll suggest a subcommittee of your Trails Committee and a subcommittee of the bicycle pedestrian. Like, I don't know what he'll come up with. So it might be more efficient to wait until there's one or two more council meetings where I can make that report and he can think about it. But you are free to agendize it if you think there's, you know, public input that you want or a more fulsome time to discuss it. Either way, I defer to your team.
I mean, I appreciate you, Judith. I do think it's a topic that is, and I think that's kind of where I felt when I saw that PV Forum debate. It just brings to light again that there's a misunderstanding, right? Like, we actually do have a committee that's working hard on this. And I think there's a perception, as you saw someone kind of being like, we can get a new trails committee. You know, I mean, people are angry about this issue. And I do think it needs more than just the five of us here. So I like the idea of it being, if you can report to the council and then let us know their thoughts on kind of bringing in some more parties on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, and it
just to
needs-
circle this
Yeah.
back. I personally do not want to wait on the resolution for that section of Alpine before we go forward with the public map at least. What does the rest of my members think?
I could go either way. I mean, it just depends how long it takes. But if the subcommittee is recommending that we move forward and then tackle that problem off as its own, that's fine with me. I'm flexible.
I think the public map should reflect the current use, and then safe routes to school, hopefully by the time the new crosswalks go in and we have like the summer to potentially work through this, we could say, maybe we have a solution temporarily, whether it's like walk your bike through this section or whatever it ends up being. We have some time before we put the safe route to school map out. We just want that ready before school starts, right? Is the main goal.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think at first we've gone back and forth. Sure, it would be lovely to package this all together. But I also think we need to do what makes sense and at least give a little time to keep trying to press forward, possibly with the public maps. But if it turns out that this is going to turn into a 6 to 8 month discussion, then maybe we say, let's just publish it as it is now, but note it's being worked on. But we can wait and see.
Well, and I agree with what Jacqueline said and also with what you said, Judith. And I think when we were originally talking about some of these problem areas, our decision was to actually say the town council should be discussing this, since they're the ones who have the authority to change, to do something about these trail issues. We don't. So really, you guys, if you take it on, I think that's way better than us going round and round.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a
Yeah.
good form for public input and we can make a recommendation, but for things like this, when we are truly going to change the designation of a trail, the usage designation, it's the council's decision.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
good discussion. I'll mention to Fred, we should probably get this on the agenda. He'll figure out when the right time to do that is, I'm sure. but that's, I think, our next step. And given we're at 11 o'clock, I think we'll go ahead and take a motion to wrap it up today. There's nothing really else important on the agenda other than the committee structure stuff. Which we have another. Yes, Judith.
There was a presentation on priorities, which I'm happy to skip for this meeting, but I had been lined up to give a presentation on it. It's not a lot, and I think it needs a little more time than like 2 minutes. So why don't we at least continue that item? I think we have to make a formal recommendation to continue it as new business, if that's
Yeah,
what you want to do.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you. I will accept the motion to continue the discussion of the council priorities to our next meeting.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor? Great, so moved. Okay, wonderful. Then I'll accept the motion to adjourn the meeting. I'll second. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Fossil portion